So we are live, live, live. Welcome, welcome. Let me just confirm that you can see me. Can you hear me?
Clear.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. I can hear you,
Great,
Ushin. Can you
great,
hear me?
great. So we're live on Facebook. I'm trying to just confirm. Okay, we are live now. We're
Okay,
live.
awesome.
Okay. Can't even see. Can't see it on Facebook. Wow. It's saying that we're live. So we just jump into the meat of the session. So welcome everyone. Once again, my name is Uchechi Migwe. I'm a product manager and I consider myself as a tech evangelist. We're saying everyone should join tech. We've seen that, through tech, there's a lot of things that can be done. People can transform their lives through tech. People can revitalize their careers through tech. Even for the country, a lot of development can happen through tech because basically tech is used to solve problems. Products are used to meet, needs of people, and there's a lot that can happen through tech. Tech is a very resource of income. People can get foreign income, foreign exchange through tech and all that. So, it can't even be overemphasized. And today with me is a very good friend of mine, Mr. Muhammad Lawal. I know uh, at some point in my career, I worked with him, and he was someone in the midst of lots of people that I could connect with. Anytime we meet, they're just sparks because their ideas, knowledge sharing, and all that. And I'm very happy that he's made a lot of progress in the last time we met. And I was telling him that you see people today, and when you meet them next year, you see lots of progress. It means that they are actually on the right track, and unlike for some other people. So whatever he's doing, he should just continue doing it. And he's also a fellow tech evangelist. So without wasting much time, I just want him to introduce himself. Who are you and where do you work? Um,
Yeah, thanks, Uche. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Joining from different parts of the world and in different time zones. So, yeah, my name is Muhammad Lawal, like Uche has mentioned, and Uche is a great friend of mine. Manager, at Halo Invest. It's a fintech company here in Nigeria, and we're trying to, solve financial, um, you know, um, issues of financial inclusion through communities, basically, at Halo Invest. So yeah, really nice to be here, and just like Uche said, beyond being a tech person myself, I enjoy trying to you know get people on board the tech journey as well, because there's a whole lot of benefits and impacts that can be made through that. So yeah, really nice to be here. Thanks.
yeah, so I want you to talk about your side passion. That's the switch you talked about it. What are you guys doing in Switch at the moment?
Yeah. So yeah, Switch is basically a community we're trying to put together to help people who are trying to transition from non-tech backgrounds to tech backgrounds. So I mean, I didn't have a tech background. I had to go through certain processes to transition into tech, and it wasn't I mean, I didn't have it was a whole lot of work, research, and studying and all of that. So today you see that quite a number of people are interested in tech, but they don't know who to go to, or what to what tech career to even decide to pursue, and all of that. So all those questions, all those resources you're going to need when you're transitioning, we're trying to make everything available. So making Switch a one-stop shop, for anyone who wants to transition. We we have webinars, we have a podcast. We're even looking to give people grants, to take courses, because there's some paid courses you have to take, even as far as device financing. So one of the problems people have is, I don't have a good laptop or stuff like that. So based on the partnerships that we might be able to broker with other supporting companies, then we might be able to give grants for devices, and a whole lot. Literally, we're trying to transition, and you don't have to pay to be a member of Switch. So yeah, that's what we're doing at Switch.
Okay. You just mentioned something that I wanted to get to, and this is before you tell us about your story.
Okay.
In Nigeria,
Mhm.
while we boast ourselves as the giant of Africa,
Mhm.
we still have issues. Besides Lagos, Abuja, which other city is Port
Port
Harcourt?
Harcourt.
Yeah, Enugu. I don't know, maybe some other cities. Most
Yeah, and
cities
Ibadan, I guess.
don't have broadband internet. And what are the things? What are the most important things anybody needs to have for them to be able to play in tech? You know,
Um,
and why I'm saying this is that I remember when the pandemic happened and people who were within that tech space had to go work from home. It was a big problem for many people, many organizations.
yeah,
So, what are those
yeah.
things? What are those things? Can you identify anything that anybody that wants to play in tech should have?
Yeah, it's very as basic as it is. Like you said, it can be a problem in this part of the world. But I think a laptop, really a good laptop, and by good laptop, I'm talking in terms of specifications. Some of the things you might be needing, to use in your work, and internet connection. That's it basically, a laptop and internet connection. And but then, as basic as that seems, in this part of the world, is not, those two aren't really the easiest things to come by. And for laptop, I'm talking in terms of affordability. So you have, a whole lot of youths, who are interested in tech, but trying to transition to a career path that can, to a very, very large extent, assure you of a job, a good job, but then you can't afford the tools that you need, to actually get into that path. So that's one of the issues. And then you have, today, I mean, we don't produce laptops in Nigeria, we import them. And with the rising, the
Cost.
so it tells on these things that we import, like I mean, a laptop that would probably cost maybe 200,000 naira a year ago will probably be costing maybe 350 or 400,000 naira now. So affordability for the laptop and for the internet, I mean, it's it's not. I mean, it can be better. Let me just put it like that. It can be better because you go to other clients and you see how, it's not. I mean, it's relatively not there. So it can be better. But then, to answer your question directly, you need a laptop. That's it.
Okay, I'll interject at this point. I was part of a cohort. It was a PM cohort training that was really practical, and I was very happy that there were lots of undergraduates. It was for Africa, so about 4,000 students were
Wow.
part of that cohort, organized by Ingressive for Good, and there were lots of undergraduates, and some of them said they had to use their phones to do stuff, and I know how limiting that can be. you know
Yeah.
so um what what I want to get to is for internet, is there any advice to people in terms of affordability? I have thought of something that, okay, what if people come together, like and pay for internet so that it's not just one person, that kind of thing. Do you have any ideas on getting a good laptop spec, and also affordability? Then you've not mentioned power. Don't you
Oh
think
yeah,
would
oh
affect?
yeah, really important. I mean, really important. And in in I mean, without power, there's no way your internet or your laptop would even get to work, right? So that's really important. And yeah, beyond relying on the um, typical power supply we get from the government, it's very advisable to always have backup. And by backup, these days backup means getting solar energy,
Yeah,
because I mean running on generators that use fossil fuel can be quite expensive, and it definitely just adds to solar system might be expensive initially, but on the long run, um, you get to benefit more compared to using fossil fuel. So yeah, you need power definitely, and in making arrangements for power, you definitely need to make arrangements for backup.
okay. And right
All
now,
that
I know that.
reliable.
Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I said right now, I know there are a lot of companies that offer this small scale solar inverters. MTN was doing one of them. There was another company called BB Jump, but they're just Solinter, they're just lots of them, right? That people can actually use for work when it comes to tech. And it's not necessarily that it's powering your whole house, it's just for
Yeah,
that small office that
your
where you work.
devices.
Because if you're working in tech, you need to have constant power and
Mhm.
you need to have constant internet. In fact, most of the broadband stuff I know run on electricity. You have to plug them
Yeah,
for them to run. So yeah, so that's one. And like you mentioned earlier, for getting a good laptop, you can take advantage of some of the pay small scheme, and you can
right.
get some refurbished laptops that are still good.
Exactly.
You can get foreign use, second-hand laptops that can still serve you until you make
Yeah,
some money to buy very brand new ones and the bigger ones.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah. In fact,
that's okay. Go
in
ahead.
fact, one way we're thinking about solving that. It might not go a very large extent, but I know that it would do something for the last whole lot of us who are already in tech, who you know, we're probably on our second or third devices in terms of laptops. We have old devices that for one reason or the other we're not using anymore. So one thing we're trying to do as Switch is to reach out to guys in the community to say, you know what, a whole lot of us have devices that we're not using anymore. If we can donate, these devices, just so other people who are trying to get into the ecosystem can use them. So collect as much as possible from guys who are already in the industry, who are trying to donate, and then, get a reliable company to maybe look at it for those of them that have issues, get grants to fix them, and just distribute them to members of the community, be really in need of it and who have the potential to actually switch to the other side. So that's one way we're looking at it. And even in terms of internet as well, I if where they can maybe even, if not free data, for members of the community, of course limited, maybe subsidize the cost, have a special plan for people in the community. So these are some of the things. So beyond just making courses and webinars and all of that available for people, we're also looking at the infrastructure side, just to make it totally seamless for people to be able to switch. So yeah, that's one of the ways we're
Yeah,
also looking at
thank you.
solving this.
While you were speaking, an idea came up. There are a lot of Nigerians in diaspora, who have access to some of these things. And if there is an organized, structured way to reach out to them, where they can donate laptops and devices to people. That can be done.
Yeah.
I know that can be done. So
Yeah.
thank you once again. So for those of if you are joining, this is a webinar on how to make the switch to a tech career. And the target audience is anyone who is seeking to, change their lives. We're saying that in tech space, there's just so much happening. There's just so much happening. There are jobs in tech every day. Just when you look at the job openings in tech, they're just growing. The pay in tech is also on the increase because within the tech space they are well remunerated, um, and if you think that you need to make that change, um, it's possible. And what we're doing is to share the knowledge and awareness on how to make that switch to tech. Before now, I was asking you, for someone who is 50 years, who is 40 years, wouldn't they think it's rather too late to make the switch to tech? They've probably had their careers in some other thing, and they feel that this is just a big task, an uphill task. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I have a straight answer, right? Anyone who is feeling like they're too old to not even switch to tech, really start anything, just go and read about General Sanders. General Sanders is the founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, and at I think at age 50, was he 50, when he had lost everything really, and he had just a few $100 left, and he used it to purchase the ingredients he needed for a special sauce, that he had learned, and to make chicken and all of that. He made it, he sold it, and from there the rest is history. Today, KFC is all over the world with probably thousands of franchises, right? So it's really never too late to do anything really. Not and definitely not switching to tech, right? You could have retired and you just feel what you want to have some feel of what the labor market is like again. And I mean it's because you don't have to go to school to get a formal degree, get a BSc or a master's or a diploma. You don't need all of that, right? At your very own convenience, you can access everything you need to switch. So it's never too late. It's never too late
Okay,
to switch.
just to add to what you said, I want to just reiterate on this. So, if you're out there listening, what he's saying is that in tech space right now, sometimes you don't even need a degree. That's one. You can play in tech from any background, no matter what you read in your first degree or what your background is. Is it? I've seen somebody who went from fine arts into tech, right? Someone read music and they're in tech. So from whatever background, there's a place for you in tech. So and you shouldn't say that you're too old. There's just enough resources. Yeah, and I want to talk about the resources. Someone asked, I want to start coding from zero. What can I do? Do I have the resources to learn and get to that level of proficiency?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. One of with one of Elon Musk's sayings. Elon Musk way he thinks, and I like how his the radicality of his approach to life and everything. He once said that to just to prove that they can do their chores on their own, really, like they don't need their parents. But in terms of acquiring knowledge, you don't need school for that anymore. That's how much the world has evolved, right? So you have you have there are platforms where you can get to learn everything you need to become a developer within 3 months, And in 3 months, you're going to be job ready. I mean, you're going to be ready enough to take up a job and actually start earning. And you're also going to be blazing at that job. That's how that's how simple. I mean, I wouldn't say simple, but that's how easily accessible these things are. There's a whole lot. I'm going on, but there's a whole lot of platforms out there where you have a laptop, you have internet access, you have access to power, and you're able to dedicate 2 to 3 months, say up to 4 5 hours a day. You're ready, really. You're ready to go. To be honest.
Wow. Wow. Guys, what Muhammad is saying is this, that in 3 months, if your passion is to start coding, that there are resources, and these resources are largely free, right? That you can commit to training yourself and you become a coding expert as a software developer within three
Right.
months, and you'll be able to get a job. And do you have an idea what the average pay for software developers is? Um,
Well, about pay for people in tech, I generally don't like to limit it to naira, which is the currency we spend
yeah,
here, because when I tell you an average an entry level software developer, for example, and maybe around 150, 200, 250,000 naira, I feel it's limiting. It doesn't give you
the
it
big
doesn't
picture.
it doesn't exactly doesn't give you the big picture of how rewarding the career is. So I like to take it from a global perspective. And
Yeah,
from a global perspective, a software engineer entry level really could be earning as much as minimum from as I mean as so imagine being a Nigerian and working for a remote company that is paying you up to $40,000, you know, for someone who lives in this part of the world. So yeah, it can be that rewarding.
yeah.
If you're able to prove, that you've learned this thing, and you've built you've learned it, you've acquired the skill, you've been able to practice it, and you've built a whole lot of stuff on your own to display that knowledge that you have. To be honest, you could be earning up to 80, $90,000, right? Because
Wow.
again, some of these most of the job vacancies you see out there, they aren't even really particular about whether you have degrees or not, or whether you spent 5 10 years doing this thing. As long as you're able to prove that you know this thing, and the only way to prove is to show what you've built on your own. So when I along the line, when I'm discussing the process of transitioning, there is the part where you have to be able to demonstrate that you understand the knowledge you've gotten, and that's really to build stuff on your own. And that's the evidence you use to show that yes, I have this knowledge. And if you have been able to build great stuff, that impresses these people that are trying to employ you, then it's not you're going to be talking 18, $90,000 per annum, as long as you're able to deliver on the job. So that's how rewarding it can be.
And you know what? I know a software developer in Lagos, Nigeria, who
Mhm.
works for like two, three different companies.
Wow,
you
you
know,
can imagine. It
yeah,
comes with that flexibility too.
yeah,
I mean, you're working remotely, and you have the time to spare. Of course, you can do jobs that will pay you even much more. And I don't, as much as the pay is important. One thing that is equally important for me is the value you create. In fact, that's like number one for me, because I have this belief that as long as you're able to create value, then the reward will always come, right? So that's what I would advise. So if you're chasing the reward, the money, then it might not turn out to be as fulfilling, as you planned it to be. And then what? Right? The next thing is then what? So at that point you get to a saturation point. So it's always to chase value first, and how can I deliver value, as a software engineer, as a product manager, how can I give value, how can I create value? So if that is your motivation, the reward will come very seamlessly. and you won't. I mean, it won't get to a point where there's so much. You're making so much money, and you're getting saturated, because all what is driving you is the value you're creating, not necessarily the reward.
Exactly. Thank you for mentioning that because when people chase money, they will get to a point where they will get that money and they will now say, "What next?" But if you're chasing value, that can drive you very long. And if you're chasing value, it to get to a point where you may not even be actively playing, but you're still playing in the background and providing that
Right.
value, coordinating people,
Absolutely.
managing people, and doing big stuff. Wow.
Hmm.
Thank you. So if you're just joining, my name is Uchechi Mwigwe. I'm a product manager in the United Kingdom, and I am interviewing Muhammad Lawal, a good friend of mine and a product manager in Nigeria. And we are talking about how to make the switch to a tech career. And before now, we've talked about how possible, how easy, or simple. Yeah, let me use the word simple because there's a difference between simple and easy. It's
Right.
simple, but of course, you still have to put in the work. So
Absolutely.
it's simple. It's not rocket science. And we started with coding. That's that coding. Why we started with coding is that's the hardest part in tech. The hardcore coding. People are always scared. When you see coders sit down like this and they're writing something that looks like Greek.
With the hood.
Scared. Yeah, but what we're saying is that thing is not rocket science. In fact, before we started this broadcast, I was telling him that I know that at some point I will start coding. I know, and it's all in my understanding of growth mindset. Anything you set your mind on and work on it, you can achieve it, you can learn it. I'm not doing it
Right.
for any big thing, but I know it's at the point I will have to do it. I have to learn it. So, and we continue. I would want Mohammed to share your own personal, journey. How did you make the switch? What was your background? What did you read in your first degree? And how did you find yourself in tech space?
Yeah, great, great. I always like to tell this story here because I believe it's always motivating for people. So I studied accounting, right, in school in the
Wow,
university,
accounting.
and yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, I was very passionate about it, So in secondary school, junior secondary, then my strongest subject was business studies, and so it was so going to senior secondary, it was just natural for me to want to do. I had two options then: economics or accounting, and I did both. Were my favorite subjects, accounting and economics. And so when I was getting into the university, those were my two options, and I got into accounting. And I mean, I wanted, I set out to be an auditor, actually. I always wanted to be an auditor. And this is I don't mean no wrong feelings towards auditors. But today, I think about and what I am doing today, and I imagine, wait, what if I ended up being an auditor like I planned to? I can't imagine that, I will be missing out on on doing what I am doing right now. I mean, because this is going to be the opportunity cost, and I probably won't even realize how awesome this is, and because I'll just be there doing my probably be in one big four company doing auditing and all. But yeah, auditing is a great field, by the way. Not no no. I don't mean it in a wrong way. So yeah, I set out to be an auditor, and I really want to work. I really wanted to work in a big four. I mean, the dream of every accounting. Coming out of university, um, my first job, was in a bank. Actually, I was a customer service person in the bank. And after a couple of months, I left that bank and joined another bank. The first bank was Sterling Bank. And joining Sterling Bank, so at this time, what was still driving me was the fact that I wanted to be an auditor, actually. I mean, if I wanted to move to the audit department, I mean, that's at the head office, I would, I mean, it's not as easy there, at least back then, to move from a branch to the head office. And I was a customer service person at the branch. And that was one of the reasons, one of the motivating factors, amongst other things, why I moved to Sterling Bank. And when I moved to Sterling Bank, I remember, one of my last interview with the head of HR, and he asked, what I wanted to do, and I told him audit. I wanted to be in the audit department, and then recruitment was for branches up country in the north, actually, and I was sad, but I told myself, I would find my way back. This audit thing, I must do it. So I was in a branch at Zaria, I was there, and from the very first day I got into the branch, I was making moves, to move back to the head office, to the audit department, and I enrolled for my accounting certificate. That's ICANN and ACCA, and I'm preparing to take my exams and all of that. And after 18 months at the branch, I was able to relocate to the head office in Lagos. And so, interestingly, I joined a team. I joined the customer experience team, and interestingly, the floor, the office, the customer experience team and the audit team were on the same floor. So it's customer experience on this side, audit on this side. So every time I go into my office and come out of my office, I see the office of the audit team, and I'm like, this is my destination. I'm coming back here. And spending time in customer experience, started changing, my outlook, for my career. Um, I started understanding, the whole, trying to help. What before that, um, I joined the customer experience team at a point where the bank was very heavy on digitization, right? So the bank was going through a digital transformation at the time, and being in the customer experience team, we were very hands on, in that journey, because the bank was launching a whole lot of digital solutions, and we had to support these digital solutions. So it was, I mean, I started developing interest in these things, and we're putting out apps, and we were support. I mean, we at the CX team were supporting and all of that. And sometimes I got frustrated because customers would have issues, and then I'm like, I mean, when they were building this thing, why didn't they think of this? Why didn't they think that this would be an issue and just solve this issue so it doesn't even become an issue in the first place? And so at that point, I was already having the thoughts of, okay, I need to get hands on. I need to be part of the people who build this thing, because I've interacted with customers a whole lot. I've been interacting with customers for the most part of my careers, and to a very large extent, I understand how customers think. I can speak the language of customers, and so if I take these people that build this thing, I think I would do so well. I will build better solutions. And luckily, at the time, there was a problem we were facing in the contact center, and it had to do with managing knowledge, and making resources easily available for the contact center agent. And I was called upon to develop to find a solution to that problem. And I was able to develop an internal learning management system, for the team, right? And that was just it. I built something. That was it. That was when I decided, okay, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be building things, because I built it, all the way from scratch. I didn't have to code. I used no code. It was SharePoint then, Microsoft SharePoint, Microsoft Flows. I think it's called Power Automate now, and a few other tools in the Microsoft Office suite born. And it was helping. It made sharing knowledge and accessing knowledge a whole lot easier for people in the contact center. And on my desk, I can access everything I need to know about products, processes, without having to ask anyone or trying to get a supervisor to join my call and all of that. So that was a spark. I'm like, okay, I built something that solved a problem. I want to do this, on a larger scale, right? And then I set out. I mean, I forgot about audits at that point. I'm like, you know what, audits can, audits can, because I mean, like I said earlier, I felt I enjoyed the value that I brought to the team by building that solution. And I mean, for me, it's all about value, right? And I feel, I mean, I can I can give a whole lot more value, by building things. And then so I set out, to switch to a team where I can do product management. But I was still in a contact center, supporting. Opportunity came to move to join the customer success team. A new customer success team was being created for the corporate and investment banking division of the bank. And it was I thought of it, and I felt it was a strategic move for me. I had that desire to do product management. I had already started doing some research, trying to understand what I needed, analysis, reading articles, and then I sort of understood the interplay of different teams, in the whole product development ecosystem. And I knew that customer success teams, work, much more closely with, product, and it was also very interesting for me because I got to learn a whole lot. Before that, I didn't know that, customer experience was different from customer success. So I learned a whole lot, but more importantly, it gave me access to the product development team that you were part of, actually. you know yeah. And I remember that, even as a customer success officer, if you remember very well, I like to take up some of your responsibilities. So
Yeah,
I didn't have anything to do with developing requirement documents. But then I like to do stuff like that.
yeah,
Like, when we would have maybe feedback from customers that they wanted a particular feature, or we've looked at customer interaction data and see that, okay, if we have this feature or upgrade to this, then it will help customers, rather than just pass it to the product team. I would go into doing research and documenting, and sometimes even trying to do prototypes by myself. So that was a training ground. That's how I got really close to Uche. Then we used to interact a whole lot, sharing ideas, and then I got to intensify, my learnings. I took some courses. I even did some unpaid internship, with some tech companies, just to help solidify my knowledge of, product management. And then, I that, okay, hey, I'm open to joining any product team. And the opportunity came, and I joined a product team for a subsidiary of the bank, the non-interest arm of the bank. I joined the digital business team there to manage the flagship mobile banking application for that arm of the bank. And that actually gave me a whole lot of exposure. And I mean, joining the team, then I mean, I definitely, I think everyone goes when you're coming from a non-tech background, where you question yourself, you feel inadequate,
that's
right?
imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome, the common
Exactly.
terminology within the
Yeah,
tech space. Yeah,
you feel like, oh my god. So I've not done product management before, and then I'm joining this team, and that manage. And I think that's one of the interesting thing I loved about working with Sterling. The amount of you get the opportunity to one, and it really helps you grow in your career. So so I had to double up on my efforts, learning a whole lot more, because I mean I learned enough to but then I'm here now, and I need to, like, get things done. So I took a whole lot more courses, interacted with some mentors that I had already go about my new role. And within my first 6 months in the team, we launched two applications, actually. The app, and it was a very, very interesting it's been exactly 2 years now since I got that product management title, because I always like to say that I started doing product management even before I got the title
Yeah.
in my former team, and I was working with product managers in a former team. So, but when I got the actual job role, product manager, it's like 2 years now, and it's been really interesting. It's like the best thing that ever happened to me, really. And 2 months ago, I had to leave Sterling. I got an opportunity to join Halo as a senior product manager. And I mean, right now it's right. I joined the company, and I told myself, look, it's a corporate environment and it's a bigger company. Things are done differently. I have access to, for example, I just needed to reach out to the data management office, and I would get the data I need. I mean, it's a lot easier. It's like coming from the palace, and then you're going to live in just one. I mean, So I joined Hill, and I'm like, so I had to condition myself to understand that it's different here, and I have to learn. I have to be based off of the environment I was working, and begin to relearn, based off of the new environment that I'm going to be joining. And I think that my 2 months I've been able to learn a whole lot, and I tell myself I feel a whole lot more like a product manager than I ever did, really, because things that I get to do it, have much more hands on, doing this job, that I've chosen. And yeah, so it's been really interesting. A whole lot of
That's very nice. It's
yeah,
inspiring. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So while you were talking, something what jumped at me was that tech, is all about building. You mentioned value and also building a product that solves problems, right?
right,
That's what tech is all about. So if you're here, you're listening, it's not about the money. It's not about the wonderful work environment. I shared some
right,
images of what tech offices look like. The play, and all that. But it's
uh-huh.
about building something that solves a problem. I don't know if you've
Right,
heard of the Calendly, built by a Nigerian guy.
yeah, yeah,
Calendly,
yeah, yeah.
how passionate that
I
guy
do.
was when he started it. He was going to Ukraine when the Ukrainian-Russian war was starting, because he had his developers there. He was still going there even when everybody was running away to meet
Can
with his
imagine.
developers and all that. And today he's one of the richest guys in the United States.
Right, right,
Yeah, and he's built he already has a unicorn. And that's the thing about tech. You could just, right now, in everyday life, you encounter challenges and you're thinking, okay, how can I build a solution that solves this, not just for myself, but other people? So that's what
right,
tech is all about. And I think the next thing you mentioned was learning. And what tech does for you is that you have to be constantly learning. And you said
right.
something that before you got the title of product manager, you were already doing product management. And this is something that
Exactly.
I hear from everyone, almost everybody that transition to tech. Where you are, the role that you want to play in, you look for opportunities to actually start doing it where you are, start solving those problems.
Yeah,
And that is
yeah.
one of the things that will come handy when you have an interview. When you're
Hmm.
coming to an interview without an experience, you
Yeah,
are looking to demonstrate that in your current places or your former places, you've done things that it would show transferable skills, you know, um, on that can be transferred to your new role.
yeah,
So this is
exactly.
this is really interesting. So thanks for that narration of how you switch. Today is your interview because I have a similar story. I don't even have a tech background. I read geology in my first degree. and I read petroleum geoscience from the Premier University of Nigeria, University of Ibadan, for my second degree, and I have not practiced that for a single day. Ha-
Right.
have you practiced accounting?
No, I have never done anything where my job role was accountant or
Okay,
financial analyst or anything like that. Nope.
okay. So, and this is, this just goes to say that in the tech space, it's open. Anybody, it's an all commerce thing. Anybody, you watching us here can join us. And please, if you have any questions, please drop it on the comment section. We'll try to answer them. And we have just less than 20 minutes, if I'm right. We just want to go into the advice for someone who wants to make that switch. Where do they start from? What would you advise them to do? What courses, certifications, and how do they build up the experience? Yeah.
Yeah. So, with the work we're doing at Switch, we've been able to narrow it down into six steps, basically. So you're trying to transition into tech. There are 6 steps, that you can take to make it really easy for you, and then I'll highlight them, and then just break them down a little bit. And then the first thing is that first off, you need to figure it out, and by figure it out, I mean figure out that part of tech that you want to transition into. So the tech space is very wide. There's a
Yeah.
whole lot of things that you can be doing. So there's a whole lot of different roles that go into building a solution and supporting that solution. So from being a user researcher to a product manager, data analyst, product designer. It is wide, cybersecurity analyst. It's just a whole lot. Business analyst, right? It is a whole lot. So you need to figure out, what you need to do. I'll talk more about that. I just want to highlight the steps to figure it out. Secondly, then you learn, right? Take courses, go attend webinars, read articles, and all of that. So that's the second step. You figure it out, figure out what you want to do in tech. You learn, and then thirdly, you build. I mean, well, the second step is most. I've identified what I want to do. Now, what do I need to learn? What do I need to learn to get to that point, right? And then the third step is to actually learn, like go through the process of learning. Like I said earlier, and like you said as well, you need to have something that you're able to that you can use to demonstrate that knowledge that you have learned, right? It's not enough to say, I've taken this course, I've taken this course. How do we know that the knowledge that you gain from that course is something that you're able to practicalize? And that's where building a portfolio comes in handy, right? And especially if you don't have a tech background, you need to be able to display that, yes, I don't have a tech background, but see, I have been able to do this and that, based off of the learnings that I have done, and so I'm equally qualified to do tech based off of this. And then the next thing is internship, quite close to the last one, the sixth step, which is to finally land a job. But I separated it because sometimes um, you have identified your role, you found the courses, you've taken the courses, you've learned, you've built a portfolio, but then I mean, you still some jobs or some companies still require you to have some actual job members and all of that. And that's when you want to get an internship. So an internship affords you to, get into that role without internship to build experience. And yeah, so you do an internship for 6 months, 9 months. You can now leverage on that to finally land a job. That now to just break it down, a little bit further, right? So in figuring it out, right, there are things you need to consider, right? And the first thing is to understand yourself as a person. what you need to understand what your personal interests are. What are your personal traits or attributes, identify, and then with that you can now figure out that tech career that is suitable for you. For example, I love to deliver value. I love to solve problems for people, right? And I was able to, use that to understand that, product management is great for me because a product management, I'm basically going to be figuring out solutions to problems, right? Um, so you might be a creative person. You know how to draw, like you know how to use the right part of your brain very well. You're very creative. You're great at painting. You're great at identifying patterns and all of that. Then product design might just be it for you, right? And if you're someone who you're very logical, the left part of your brain is that's your stronghold, right? You're good with numbers and all of that, then coding might just be it for you. So your personal attributes, and traits, can give you a pointer, to the kind of role on who also you like to be that person who makes sure that everything is in check. You don't like when there are loopholes. You're that person who at night before everybody sleeps you go and check the door to ensure that okay, the doors are locked, the security light is on. Cyber security things, it might not seem like they're just like basic things, but these very basic things can be pointers to the kind of career that you can switch to. Figure it out on your own. It's also good to talk to people around you because the people around you know you to a very large extent, and if you talk to people and think are my attributes that that I can use to translate into a career, and people around you can tell, oh, you're actually good at this, you're so I mean you can as well just switch allows you to do this, full time. So that's another opportunity. And then so you also want to now having figured out that particular field, say product management, like I did, you now want to find the courses that you can take, to innate traits. But I mean, there are standards in the industry that you need to understand how things are done, for you to be able to excel in the. Yeah, you want to take courses, you want to read articles, you want to follow influencers in that particular field. Today, in product management, software engineering, and these different tech fields, there are people we tag influencers, people who have excelled in those particular roles, and now they're trying to give back to the community. So you want to follow these people on LinkedIn, you want to read their articles on Substack, on Twitter. You follow these people just so you hear that they are sharing, right? So yeah, that's about I mean, some of these people can even be on. And so some of the platforms, where you can go to learn stuff. There's Free Code Camp. Free Code Camp is a non-profit, where you can go to learn coding skills. So from front end, back end, data analytics, a whole lot really you can learn on Free Code Camp for free. I know people who took 3 months and she actually got a job, working with a company outside Nigeria in the US actually, and she gets paid in dollars. Code Camp, and she didn't get to pay a dime learning on Free Code Camp, and she got a job that was paying her in FX, right? So Free Code Camp is a great platform for people who want to go into software engineering, coding, programming, and all of that. You have entry level. So entry level is particularly targeted at people who want to theirs is a bit of is a mix of knowledge acquisition and also experience, right? You actually get to do actual work, that can count as experience. So they have programs in product design, product management, venture capital, and some other areas like that. You can check them out. There's also the 1 month PM. 1 month PM is a program that basically runs you through everything you need to know to become a product manager in 4 weeks. Is an intensive program, but it's definitely worth it for those who want to go into product management. Then so for some of us, most of these platforms I've mentioned, you get to do self-learning. Actually, there's also Coursera and Udemy. There's a whole lot of courses on different tech careers on Coursera and Udemy that you can pay and then you self-learning, right? Now there are actually institutions that are set up just to help people learn about tech skills, or help people transition to tech career. And one of them in Nigeria here is Utiva. I think they're doing a great on people who are coming from non-tech backgrounds, right? So they have the product school, they have the data analytics school, they have the design school. Pretty much the major roles in tech, if you want to transition into any of this, you can definitely attend. Check out Utiva. You see their schools, and you can attend and learn. There's also Alt School. Alt School is quite new, but they're also doing a great job. So they have a product school as well, where you can learn product management and product marketing management. There's the engineering school, where you can get to learn front end, back end. Is also one of those great places where you can go to learn. So the difference between this is Old School and Utiva and these other platforms I've mentioned is that it's much more structured, hold you accountable, and maybe give you assignments and homeworks and all of that you have to comply. So so if you're someone who isn't really good with self-learning, then you can definitely use either of these platforms. None of these people have paid me to do any adverts. It's just based off of being in the industry, and even my own personal learnings. I've been able to identify these platforms as places where you can learn. Medium is also so for articles, you need to read a whole lot of articles, and I find Medium to be doing a great job. So you can subscribe to medium.com, and you will get a whole lot of identify, select the kind of articles that you want Medium to send to you, and you can learn a whole lot just by reading articles from different players in the industry. And even Twitter, like most of us are on, you get to learn a whole lot. Right. Now, we've talked about figuring it out, and then we've talked about, taking these courses. Now, the actual learning process itself. And on this step, I want to highlight three things, which are diligence, dedication, and commitment, because it can be draining, right? Some of us have probably not, engaged in any rigorous learning activity after we graduated from the university, right? It's just been work, and you've been so busy. So going back to that mode, and I mean probably even much more intensive than university, um, you need a whole lot of diligence. And by diligence, I'm saying you need to put in the work, right? You can't just say, okay, I want to move, and then identify the courses and then you're slacking. You need to put in the work. You might need to burn late night candles, because you're most likely working. You probably have a full-time job that you're doing during the day, right? And so you might need to learn during the weekends, give up on going to the club or hanging out with friends just because you want to learn. So diligence is, you need a great deal of diligence, when you're at this stage. And then dedication, you need to be a fan of what you're trying of what you're doing, right? Dedication and commitment might seem like same thing, right? But they're different, right? You need to be a fan. Being dedicated is different from being committed. You can be dedicated to something and not committed to it, and you can be committed to something and not necessarily dedicated to it, right? So by dedication, you need to be a cheerleader, because I mean, you might even get people telling you, you're just wasting your time and all of that. So you need to be able to, you know, to just remain focused, on that path, and cheer yourself on, and make sure it's something that you enjoy doing. That it has to be, you have to force yourself to enjoy it, because you might get saturated at some point, and you know what, I'm tired, and you just give up. But if you're dedicated, if you're a fan of that thing you're doing, then it would help you get through that part where you get saturated. And then the next thing, you have to be committed, right? So if you say, I'm going to learn 2 hours per day and 5 hours during the weekend, you have to be committed to that. It's important because commitment is the difference between the people that it takes 3 months to transition and the people that are going at it for over a year. Major difference is to remain committed. So these three key things: diligence, dedication, and commitment. You need to imbibe them, during that process of learning. As long as you're able to maintain these three things, then you will scale through that. And then the next thing is to build your own portfolio. Now there are problems. I mean, we've talked about how switching to tech is about using technology to solve problems. There is a whole lot of problems out there, waiting for people to solve them, right? So, for you to be able to say, yes, I can now practice what I've learned. So, build something, solve a problem, find a problem within your space, and use the knowledge that you have gotten, to solve that problem. Now, someone might tell me, I mean, I want to do product management or business analysis, and I don't have coding skills, so I can't build something like literally on my own, right? Now there are different ways to go about that. Today, there's something called no code, right? You can use no code platforms. So actually, where you don't have to learn coding, you just drag and drop, elements and tools, to actually build stuff. Now, if you're not even, which aren't actually technical, in in that path you've chosen as a product management, for example, there is you I mean there is the scope of your contribution to the development of a solution. Doing research, understanding the needs of your users, understanding the problem space, you might even call it customer discovery, and then, going through using tools like design thinking, jobs to be done, the jobs to be done framework, using some of these things to actually try to figure out these solutions. And then there is the documentation, of these solutions that, you'll pass to engineers and all of that. So even if it is within the scope of the career path you've chosen, do something. Have a portfolio of, different solutions that you have, tried to unravel, you've discovered, and then you've also designed what the solution should look like. That is enough, right? You don't necessarily have to build. And then there's also the part, people who are probably on the same journey with you. Look for people who are doing coding, engineers. You most likely will find, especially when you join communities or you join any of these schools like Utiva, you would have people who are on the same path, trying to transition, but then they're doing maybe engineering or coding, and then you can collaborate with these people, and then you can bring your solution. Would solve the problem within the scope of the path you've chosen, or you partner up with people who can actually bring it to life for you. So that's that. And then for internships, I think what I just need to highlight to unpaid internships. So it might seem like, I'm doing free work, I'm adding value, but I'm not getting rewarded. You need to understand that the reward for you is the experience you're gaining. You're able to add that to your resume, and then you can use that to eventually get a job in the future. So, because it's not easy to come, I mean, most paid internships these days even require you to have some form of experience, right?
Experience.
So, and then in getting internships, you need to also be proactive, right? Sometimes companies might not advertise that, they might not even need interns, but if you've done a whole lot of learning, you've built some things on your own, you can identify companies who are in your area of interest. Say you like fintech, for example, or edtech or health tech. Identify companies in these particular sub tech subdomains, and reach out to them, and on LinkedIn connect with people who work there. Say, I'm trying to transition, and I've learned this, I'm trying to become a product designer. Here's my portfolio. I'm very happy to join your company as an intern, to design products for you, and you don't have to pay me. More often than not, most tech startup, who are, especially those who are trying to bootstrap, who don't have enough money to pay for resources and all of that. We'll be very happy to have you on board to join them, and you can use them to leapfrog, to actually getting a full-time job. And then the next thing is to actually learn.
Can you hold? You said lots of things. I was battling not to interrupt you because you're just dropping a whole lot of things. First of
Right.
all, let me just take it back a bit.
Okay.
If you're just joining us, this is the interview on how to switch to tech. And my name is Uche Chiwigwe, and this is Muhammad Lawal. We are both product managers in the world, and doing our own things. So you talk about diligence, dedication, and commitment. And
Right.
when we put out this thing here that we're going to do it, people were chatting me. I want to do this. I want to do that. I didn't respond to lots of people because I wanted them to come and hear from the horse's mouth.
Right.
It's not just about I want to do it. I tomorrow by 9 p.m. I'll be sharing with people on opportunities in Netherlands, because right about now there are lots of opportunities and mostly tech, within the tech space. I know someone who got a job and they moved her and her husband and their child, with visa sponsorship, all from
Right.
Nigeria. To, in fact,
Right.
when she got the job, she was actually jobless because she lost her previous job. So they moved her, after a series of interviews. So that's actually what can come in. But there's a lot of diligence, dedication, commitment that has to be put in. It's not just about you want to do this, but there's a whole lot of diligence, dedication, and commitment that has to come into it. And Muhammad has done a great job on pointing out the process of doing this. He talked about the courses you can do and all that. And if you are interested, please go down the comments, and we're thinking of something, because having like a group, either a Facebook group or WhatsApp group or Telegram's group, where people who want to switch to tech can come in, and we provide the links and information to do courses. There are lots of free courses that you can actually start doing. There are also the ones that allow you build a portfolio by doing stuff. Okay, Mohammed's back. Let me add him back. So there are a number
Right.
of them that allow you to build something, and that would help you have your portfolio. And he also said something about internships. I don't see a lot of people do internships in Nigeria. It's not something that's big, but outside the country, it's a big thing. And when you want to do internships, you just go out for it and look for free internship. As in, go to people and say, I want to work for you for free. And what you're doing is getting that experience. You don't mind how much they're not paying you, but you're getting the experience, and that experience is going into your CV. I remember an incident of a young lad I know who was working in a bank, and he was in a branch as a teller. Was a teller in a branch, but he had already done courses and on coding. And when he came back, he was looking for how to apply it. He started building an app that would let customers know where their ATMs and all that and all that. So what he did was he reached out to the tech team of the bank and asked them for like APIs to point to what he's doing, and that same zeal, what you just talked about. And when they saw what he was doing, he was able to demonstrate. They just moved him from that point to the head office to
Yeah.
go and train the tech team. And this is actually what internship is all about.
Yeah.
There are lots.
Yeah.
In fact, if we have groups, right, there are opportunities where there are new startups that are looking for people who want to work for free, who want to come and cut their teeth in product management, in coding, and all that. So those opportunities are out there. If you are in a community, you just get loads of information. So all these things are doable. Your age is not a limitation. You can do it, and you can transform your life, and not just your own life, can transform your society using tech. So we spent 1 hour already, and so we'll be doing the closing formality. It's been a great session. I personally I've learned lots of things, and outside this session, we'll still have discussion on how I'll tap into what Switch is doing, and also make it available to my own network and all that. So just the wrap up on how you can do internships and the rest of the things you wanted to say. Thank you.
Oh yeah, so yeah, the last stage really is finally help people stage is to have a very, I mean, a global outlook, right? Don't don't limit yourself to your local environment, because that's one of the beauty of having a tech career. You're literally limitless, when it comes to the kind of companies you can work for, the kind of location you can have your job, right? So I don't these days, when I try to advise people and share resources on where people can get jobs, I hardly ever share sites or platforms where you get jobs in Nigeria. It is strictly remote, because I have seen people. I'm currently enjoying as well, where you get work in the company, literally where I mean tomorrow. You could be for a company in the UK, in Canada, anywhere in the world, literally in India, and you're right here in Nigeria, and they pay you to add value to them. So a few platforms where you can find some of these jobs. You have upstaff.com. Upstaff.com is one of is a great platform. Most of the jobs you'll find there are mostly remote jobs. There's also weworkremotely.com. Weworkremotely.com. I think that's like the king of it all. You'll find remote jobs there. There's crossover for work, crossover.com. You find a whole lot of jobs there as well, tech related jobs, and even non-tech jobs like jobs in finance and management are also there. Remote jobs. The easiest one really again is LinkedIn, right? So on LinkedIn, you can literally, filter, go to the jobs module, filter for jobs. For the location, you put remote, and you can select, you input the search query for the roles you're looking for, and you search, and it's going to bring search results, and then you can even save job alerts for this particular search, where LinkedIn will send you new jobs that are being posted every day for those parameters that you have set during that job search. So these are some of the ways and some of the places where you would find some of these remote jobs. Now, beyond remote jobs where you work from, where your local environment, some of these jobs also give you the opportunity to actually relocate. These companies are willing to pay for your visa and for your entire relocation process country. If it's a job where they want you to be physically present in their country, then they will help you move over, and you can, they'll pay all the cost and everything, and you literally get. Yeah. Then there's also program. I think you're aware of that, so there's technician program for experienced people in tech. So you've gotten experience over time. You can apply to the technician visa. You can just check that out. A simple Google search will give you all of the information you need, and that helps you, relocate to the UK. Just by being someone who works in tech, or as a final note, I always like to tell people this as well, and that is icing on the cake for me, when you're doing tech, is that it is actually own your own company, right? Most of the work you're going to be doing in tech, would expose you to insights, that would help you think in such a way that eventually you want to build something of your own. You want to build a solution that would be yours, and that would actually add value to people. Recently I was learning about how we now have a pay stack, mafia The way we had the PayPal mafia, that's the guys that came together to found to create PayPal. How most of their early employees have gone out to build things of their own. Elon Musk is one of those people, and today he has Tesla, he has SpaceX, and all of that, and a whole lot of them. Today we have a whole lot of the early employees of Paystack, setting up companies of their own, and that's because of the kind of exposure that they had building with Paystack, right? And I know someday, maybe really soon, you probably would hear that I'm launching something, and solving a problem somewhere. Just yesterday, I was in a mentorship event with Abubakar Suleiman actually, and Obinna of Sterling Bank, and that was there. I met someone, and he had this beautiful. He's a data analyst, and he had this beautiful idea, about to solve a problem in the health sector using technology. And to him, he money, and then to set up a company and all of that. And then with my own exposure as a product manager, I told him, do you know this thing you can actually start right now? They're like, no, it's not possible. Like, I mean, because it's a full-fledged, I have to build an app. I don't know how to code. I have to hire. I'm like, you can start this thing right now. And I made him understand the concept of the minimum, build the full solution. Just build something that you can actually begin to use, that solve, like, I mean, go back to first principles. One of the
Yeah.
reasons I love Elon Musk, first principles. Break it down to the first principle. And what you can do you can use the least amount of effort to solve, and at the end we were able to figure out that using maybe Google Forms and some automation platform, we can actually set up something that
Wow. Yeah.
can begin to learn from the people who begin to use it initially, and then from there you continue to iterate until you have a full-fledged solution. So
This,
that's what working in
this
tech does for
what you
you.
just said. What you just said is the sweet thing about product management, for example. You know,
Right, right,
you
right,
can just start. Apply the lean product development,
right,
philosophy approach, where you don't have to, get a house and all that. You just start now. Start with the
right.
MVP. Start with basic stuff and start learning
Mhm.
from your customer. Build a
Right,
prototype and all that. So, and that's what tool that gives you. And just to add to what you talk about, eventually building something. I'm preparing my son for 11 plus exam to grammar schools in the UK, and we had to sit down to look at, okay, what aspects is he supposed to learn, the vocabulary list and all those things. And an idea came up. Why don't I build an app to help him do this?
right.
And if I do that,
Exactly. Yeah.
other people can also use it. So this is just everyday life. You're looking at how to solve problems. There's a guy, I can't remember his name, but a Nigerian who went to the US, and he was having problem locating trains in the subway, and he built an app that helped solve that problem. Eventually, he sold it for
Right.
3 billion to, I think it was
Wow.
Microsoft. Yeah,
Wow.
so $3 billion.
I mean, just imagine, think about that.
So that is tech for you. So if you're not
Right.
in tech, you're missing out. If you're not in
Yeah,
tech,
a whole lot.
you're missing out. Go ahead.
So one day, my last birthday actually, my wife, took me out, for dinner, and we had an experience with the waiter, who served us. And I thought to myself, as a product manager, I really like this. This is a problem. If I how do I solve this? I wanted to solve this whole thing, and I thought about how about I have direct access to the kitchen where I take my order. I don't have to, wait for someone who's coming to take my payment while the POS is not working and all of that. How do I bypass that? I have direct access to the kitchen. I place my order, my food, and then someone just brings my food and leaves me alone. want to be rude to me for whatever reason or the other. I don't want someone to make me feel bad because I'm not tipping them. That whole experience. And then, I thought of a solution really, and it might interest you. I'm actually, working with some of my friends to actually turn out to be the next big thing. I don't know, in the food tech sector, and so that's the kind of mindset you get when you work in when you work in tech. Every time I'm faced with a problem in a particular situation, I'm instantly thinking, if I was to solve this as a product manager, what would I do? I can build this. I can. The last time we were in the hospital, it took us some time, to actually see the doctor. And there's a platform, an app that I can use to schedule my appointment with the doctor and actually see what the queue is like. So I know that, okay, there's like 4 or 5 people ahead of me. And then when I see there's maybe just 2 people ahead of me, I know that if I go to the hospital by this time, by the time I'm getting to the hospital, probably just one person ahead of me, or maybe nobody. And then, I don't have that wait time. I mean, very easy peasy. So it's a kind of insights, and the mindset you develop as someone who works in tech is solution driven. You just want to prefer solution. You want to add value. How can I add value? How can I make things right here? So I mean, that's the idea. So really, again, there is the only thing that will be limiting you right now is your mind, right? There's really nothing to be scared of. Oh, interestingly, I know someone who, in his process of trying to transition and trying to just build a portfolio that he can use to get a job, what he built turned out to be something, that eventually became a company, that he's currently the CEO of. In the process of transitioning, he was still looking forward to, okay, if I
Wow.
build this, I would have my portfolio and get a job. Then he built something, and then it turns out that, oh my God, like this thing, it eventually became something big. Yeah. So these are the possibilities. Really. There's a whole lot of possibilities. We're calling upon you, to join us. Join, just be part of this journey. Really, it's
And
an
the
interesting
tech
journey,
train
and
is
I don't.
gearing to move. That's the future. Don't you want to be a
Right.
part of the future?
Exactly.
So it's
Exactly.
wow, 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 wow. Mohammed, it's been really great having you, and from the comments, it's been very insightful. It's been very interesting. And we look to, maybe having you again. And if you're listening and you are interested in anything we're doing, please drop your comment in this drop a message in the comment section. We're looking to eventually have something structured where we would have people, coming and even build products. Because yeah, when it comes to building products, there's the power of brainstorming, where if you have people come together, they think about problems around them, and they also come up with solutions to solve those problems. And
Mhm.
before you know it, the good thing about those sessions is that you don't even know where to lead to. You
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you'll just spin out of the whole thing. So if you want to
Yeah.
be part of this whole thing, we want to just handhold everyone until we have success stories of people who, from the interaction we had today, got in and eventually, started doing something in tech.
Right.
So thank you, Muhammad. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Grateful.
Definitely a pleasure. Very
Having you
happy
once
to do
again.
this.
And for everyone, thank you for joining us. Please share this, share this. If you know someone who this will be beneficial to, please share it to them. Share it, and like, and make comments and all that. Thank you. I'm really grateful. And if you really benefit from this, we'll do more. I think what's coming up in my mind is I know a lady in Nigeria who has been working for a number of years. Then she bumped into tech space and she started working as virtual assistant and product support, right? And for a US company on some of these platforms you mentioned. And
Wow.
within about 8 months, she's earning about $30,000, dollars. And this is
Wow.
someone who was earning like 120 or 130, having worked for 2 years in the country. So these are opportunities, yeah, we said it's not about the money, but man, money is also a motivation, but it's about adding value.
Absolutely. It is. It is. It is.
So thank
Definitely
you
is.
guys, and we'll bring the show to a close at this time. It's been
Right.
a ev- the time has been well spent, and
No.
lots to learn from. Personally, I have learned lots of things. I'm also going to go behind and learn a lot more, and that's a good thing about tech. It's all about learning, expanding
Yeah.
your
Mhm.
brain and memory and everything. So thank
Yeah.
you for coming, and I'd say bye bye at this time. Cheers.
Right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.